we don't introduce ourselves. I just introduce myself and then we go, right? And we just at the end we do the.
You could say that we're here.
We've been doing. I'm here with my good friends. Blah blah blah. Blah.
Welcome back to Old Guys Playing Games. I'm Stuart, and I'm here with my friends Jason, Ken, and Josh. And we're here for another fun-filled episode of what old guys do when they play games. This week, we've got some interesting topics, and obviously there's been a lot happen since our last conversation in the world, which is going to inform a little bit what we talk about today. I don't know how it can't. And we're really excited about a couple of things. Number one is the reaction of the gamer community to the world stage and what's going on with Ukraine and Russia. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Some game reviews. We'll have everybody sort of chime in of any new games they've played, whether on consoles, PCs, phones, board games, whatever. We'll find out if Josh is still losing to chess to his son. And then we'll talk about some miscellaneous stuff as well. And then any other topic, which if you're an avid listener, will come up. And so great. So let's kick it off with the events of the last few weeks. So obviously, if you're all aware, I'm sure you are, with the situation in the Ukraine with Russia invading has really driven a huge response from the world community, both from a humanitarian perspective and, of course, from a reaction to what it means for gaming and other areas of business that get done in Russia. And it's one of those things that personally is really challenging because the Russian people aren't doing this. It's being done by their government, but unfortunately, in order to maybe influence them, a lot of companies have come up with different ideas in how to react, and I guess the word would be punish or at least signal to the government that this is not okay. And so I'd like to throw it out there and see if anybody wants to chime in on what they've heard and what some of the companies doing, at least in the sphere of the gaming community. So, Ken, you want to
go? Sure. Oh, so I had read an article in what was it, Washington Post, and no, I don't typically peruse the Washington Post. It was in my news feed, and it was an article about this Ukrainian game developer based right there in Kyiv, and I was very, very interested to find out how this affects him. Obviously, we see a lot in the news about how it's affecting normal life and the atrocities that are going on there. But for him specifically, it was interesting to hear his point on it and find out what other companies are doing around that. So he obviously stopped all development and spent every moment helping family and everything. But also the friends he made in the gaming industry reached out as well, and they've got donated $1 million to humanitarian aid and a lot of cool stuff that they're doing. And the creator that made Metro, if you guys have ever played Metro, it's also a studio located in Kyiv, and they spent a lot of money donate a lot of money into that. And then Ubisoft is also doing it. So it's really interesting to see the gaming industry turn and help each other out in something like this. I was very pleased to see that. You see that in other businesses, but you don't think about it in this way about gaming. That it's a brotherhood and or a family, as it were. And that they recognize these issues and they support each other, and it's not always incredibly competitive. But moving on from that, the interesting thing that they added to that article was that EA Sports made the decision to remove Russia from their NHL and FIFA franchises. I found that very interesting. I think some other companies have done something similar. But weren't there? I think there were some companies that actually removed or halted sales even. Let's see if we can get the list. Do you remember the names?
Yeah, and I think that's all good as long as this doesn't become a trend. I think the reasoning here is extraordinary, right? And I think it's amazing. I think it's really amazing that these companies have all sort of reacted in the way that they have. And, you know, realistically, it's not probably material, but it is, to your point, it's like solidarity, right? It's showing that, it's not going to be business as usual with this going on in the world. And you think about the Ukrainian developers and ones, that if you look at some of the stories, some of the development shops are there, if they're between the ages of 18 and 60 or 50, right? They're now carrying an AK-47 and walking down the street, right? And had to likely, if they had family and friends, see their families off to go towards Poland, while they had to stay behind and defend their country, which is, it's a lot different than coding, right? And then so we obviously shout out to them and those companies that are doing something. Any other guys want to chime in on the topic?
I'm just so kind of overwhelmed and just upset about the whole thing. I was trying to think about something to say in relation to the game industry, but it's like, I was just thinking about what's going on there, and to think it's 2022 and we still have this nonsense going on. So don't mean to be a downer, but that just kind of all hit me as Ken was talking. I just didn't. No,
you're right. I mean,
didn't really have anything to say.
Haven't we evolved beyond this? it's. Look, I support what EA's doing, and some other companies too. Activision, Blizzard, and Epic, I believe, also did stop selling in Russia. I support that because I'm appalled by what Russia is doing to the Ukraine. But to play a little devil's advocate, and I think, Stuart, you kind of alluded to this, and I don't want to offend anybody, but it's interesting to hear the other side of this. So does this start a dangerous trend? Meaning, so by the fact of not selling to Russia, what does that elicit? That elicits the gaming industry, that the players in that country to be angered and upset that their government has done something that caused this company to stop selling in their country. So could that be the reason that the gaming industry is doing that, to try to start a rise up to follow potentially Blizzard, Epic's, Activision's beliefs?
Maybe. I think it's interesting. I mean, I think that would be, in this case, we would say that's a great result, right? That it's in. I mean, I think a lot of the sanctions, right? They're doing this because they want to say to their people, it doesn't have to be this way, but your government's doing that. The problem is that can also backfire, and the government says, "See, I told you." If they control the media, which they obviously do there, they can say, "Look, see what they're doing to us, and they're our enemy," and everything else. So, I think one of the interesting angles could be, the one thing about these platforms that I think we find interesting is obviously they're open chat platforms, right? So realistically, there could have been ways to get information in and out of these countries if they'd stayed open. Right now, there's always been rumors about terrorists using it and drug dealers, all that kind of stuff, because and that stuff is all monitored now, obviously. But while they were still up, they could be used to communicate, which is another interesting thing that maybe didn't get figured out, or maybe they did, and there's other ways, and it's okay. But it is that's the one thing I don't think we think about with gaming as much as these platforms being as open and as global as they are. And we can talk about some of the restrictions out there as well, but these are truly global communication platforms as much as they are global gaming platforms. And I don't think people, at least the layman, don't think about it that way, right?
Yeah. I mean, I
didn't think of it that way.
You see it sometimes. You see it sometimes addressed in those lame drama cop shows or spy shows, where they find that the criminals are actually using a game to chat between each others because it's not monitored.
They definitely do.
So and that's an interesting way to do that. But Jason, what are your thoughts on this? We haven't heard from you. Did you finish that salad you were charfing down?
It was a salmon bowl.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's a big salmon bowl.
I think my head on this was exactly where you guys ended right there, which is to think about these as game platforms and game studios is the start of the story, and where this goes is absolutely this is the next way that people engage from all walks of life. We consider ourselves gamers, and we think this is like a tight group. There's obviously we're a minority in the majority of where the world goes. They're not all gamers, but they are on social platforms. They are on communication platforms all day, every day, for hours at a time. And where these things merge, which is where everything's headed, this certainly is going to cause a lot of change in policy and company approaches to these things. I think these types of instances are big wake-up calls for companies to really examine their principles, and then for people to take stock in, holy cow, their reliance on the things that they use day in and day out, that they don't even really think about the impacts of. What if that thing that you've gotten so used to all of a sudden disappears? And you may have thought about it in game in the past, but you can't think about it as just a game in the future. You have to think about it as a place that you're engaging with others from around the world, which is a massively important thing that the human race continues to get, to evolve. So I know, man, we're getting deeper than I think we've ever gotten on a topic, but and it's times like these that are important for us to get deep, because we got to figure this out.
I think it's worth talking about with everything that's going on. Yes, we have fun and everything, but we need to talk about this.
And I think it was Stuart and Ken, you both touched on it. I think it's a slippery slope, like, to make sure it's not weaponized, because it really,
it's the danger, right?
It could be used as a weapon, right? And there's all kinds of conversations that could spiral out of this, and I'm not sure we want to get into them on this podcast, but
we've already heard about like China blocking certain American applications or websites because of the proliferation of the Western ideals, and the fear that it's going to corrupt their society. But Stuart, you've got some background on the blocking from governments on gaming, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff, right? I mean, I don't want to go down the social media side, but there's the content that gets curated and raised up on TikTok in China versus the stuff that get raised up here. And then you could decide whether that's just because of the culture or whether that's for a reason. But if you look at gaming, there's been a history of censorship, maybe the wrong word, but editing of gaming in certain countries based on certain things, normally based on images, like, so the swastika, for example. In some countries it's illegal to show a swastika, in some countries it's not, and so there was a lot around sort of in like Call of Duty and certain games, like, as you know, if you play multiplayer, you don't see the swastika, and you do here in the campaign as it would have existed. And the interesting thing there, the story is, the reason it's not in the multiplayer, I found out, is because it is cross-platform and cross-country, and they don't want to exclude those country folks, so they basically made it simple, right? So everybody plays with the Iron Cross flag instead of the other one. There's others, like if you remember back to the 2009 version of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, there was the No Russia one that was the airport shooting, if you remember, right? You're in the airport, you got to fight it out. First of all, that was banned in Russia, so they couldn't have that one in Russia.
That whole campaign, or that whole mission, or
whole campaign was removed from the version of the game in Russia.
Wow.
Because obviously there were Russians attacking, and of course they'd had some similar things. And of course, other countries like Germany and Japan and others, where they have rules around the shooting civilians. So you couldn't. So it was interesting. I was reading up that, like, whereas in the game we played here, civilians got hit. It was tragic, but you didn't lose the game. In those countries, if the civilians died, the mission failed.
Oh, interesting.
Right? Which is interesting, right? The problem becomes from a developer and other stuff. What does that mean? But I think is that truly censoring? I don't know. Maybe it is, but whether it's, I'd rather have the game more open to others than not. So I understand why images like the swastika are banned in certain places because of the legacy of what it means. I also think banning things in the past are tricky because you want to make sure that you don't forget them. But I think going back to that thing we talked about earlier, I think the idea of a global platform, which is what gaming is becoming, is really powerful.
Yeah.
Right? And we got back together as friends in a regionally diverse way because we got back into gaming because of the pandemic, right? And how many people around the world are doing the same thing? When we were kids, having a call like this from a distance would have cost $50, right?
Yeah.
It would have been expensive.
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing. So I think I didn't find a lot of examples of censorship, except for those things like games that can't be played in China, where there's a lot of, if you don't open up the source code, and if you don't, there's a lot of that kind of, if it's not sitting in the certain app stores, right? Because it has to be in their app stores.
Yeah.
Those things are still the challenges. But generally in the world, it wasn't that much. I was actually pretty surprised.
That's good, though. That's good. That's trying to become as one, and I like that. Mm-hmm. That's good to hear.
Yep. Anyway, I think that's probably enough on those topics. Anybody else want to chime in on, what's going on, situation, or anything from a gaming perspective as it relates?
Unfortunately, I don't think this is something that resolves quickly. So we'll probably be touching on this on several episodes to come.
No. Yeah, I think you're right, man. Let's hope and pray that it does resolve in a way that everybody can sort of go back to whatever normal looks like again. So that would be great if by the time next time we do a podcast, we've got some really good news. So let's talk about some fun. Let's talk about, Josh, do you have a question?
No.
Just
making sure my carpal tunnel doesn't creep up. Kidding.
Good. That's a huge hand. So let's talk about game reviews. So, okay, I've got one, but I don't want to go first. So who has played new games and who wants to chime in?
Did we? Ken and I for sure have.
Yeah, you too. First of all, I'd like to point out I did play Rocket League with those.
Yes,
you did, and you actually had fun.
Yeah, I did not. I'm not on that train.
I was mashing buttons, hoping, but I did.
It was fun. It was fun because the three of us were just having fun with it. So I was looking for some other games. Kind of getting a little burnt out on the Call of Duty train, but I was looking for some co-op games, and I came across one called Generation Zero, and it's one of three. I'm not going to talk about the other two because I haven't had a chance to play them, but Jason and I actually got a chance to play Generation Zero, and it's an open world cooperative first person shooter, a little survival. It's like so it says it's set in 1989 in post-apocalyptic alternate reality in Sweden, which is funny because you look at all the signs, you can't read them, but you hover over them and the game translates.
Just randomly in Sweden?
No, yeah. The game's developed there. So it's a developer in Sweden that developed this game. So that's why. It's from a company called Systemic Reaction. But it was released in 2019, so it's relatively new. And I really enjoyed it. It's got really, really cool visuals. But the post-apocalyptic scenario is that, and I hate to say this because it sounds so corny, but it's become overrun by killer robot machines. So it sounds ridiculous, but when you play the game, it becomes very eerie because you have this open world. You're trying to find safe houses. You're trying to find materials to make either weapons or make armor or find weapons and try to overcome this whole thing. So I really like it. The visuals were beautiful, but I want to hear what Jason had to say about it.
Yeah, I only got to play it that one time with you, and I definitely want to go back. We didn't play it long enough, and it in that 10, 20 minutes, whatever it was we played, it had enough that I was like, okay, can't wait to go play this again. Which, I play a lot of games on Game Pass cloud streaming, and I have maybe 2% of them I have interest in coming back to. So
how much longer
I had
you think that'll last? You want to come back to it? You think like one more time and then you lose?
Well, it's already gotten 100% more than its normal game attention, which is 3 seconds. So this is a success.
Great job, Generation Zero. You cracked the warning.
No, but I mean, Jason's right. I mean, he's being self-deprecating. He's saying like his attention span from these games is. I mean, Jason, like we were playing, what was it, Warface? You were like, I'm done.
Done.
Like,
yeah, I deleted it.
So what did you think about it? I mean, what did you like about Jason?
Well, the thing that I liked about it is that I think one of the things that Ken loves about it, I don't know if the two of you, Josh and Stu, will like this, but you have everything that you go to, whether it's a car or house or whatever, is going to have some loot that is you pick up and you have no idea why you're picking up a toothpick or you're picking up, speaking of toothpick, you're picking up these various things that aren't necessarily just guns, but you have to at some point use them later. Yeah. So to me, I love those games.
Sounds
where
like Zork.
You're picking things up through the course of the game.
In the bucket.
Yeah.
Drop the bucket. Pick up the door.
Well, so
it sounds like Zork. But what happens if you don't pick it up and then you needed it? And you're like, damn it.
So they're repeated like crazy. So it's not like if you didn't pick up that one hairpin and you needed a hairpin to pick some lock later that you missed that chance. You see hairpins all over the place.
Yeah.
As an example.
So it's similar, or in a similar vein of Call of Duty Zombies. For those that play that, you have the crafting station where you can, by using money, currency, you can build or manufacture a weapon or a kill streak or something. In this, you find materials, whether it's a gun or it's binoculars or just scraps metal. You can then take it to a recycling crafting table that you can actually, if you have enough materials of the different types, you can make something of it. Adhesive, oil, rubber, linen. If
can
you
I make a pterodactyl? Can I make a brooch?
Yeah, okay, Johnny. All right.
But the dinosaurs came.
But I enjoy that aspect that you have to, you can improve your character by finding things around you and making something of it. It's almost like a MacGyver aspect where you can make things that you thought you couldn't have anything. So it's pretty interesting.
Right.
Big space.
We'll have to try it as a group. We'll have to try it. I'm willing to try. I downloaded it.
I just pulled up the site. It looks cool. It looks interesting.
The gameplay is fun too. Like the mechanics or the engine is really good.
Hey,
so you instantly pick up how to play it. It's not like one of these games where you're going to spend.
You had me at Sweden. Okay.
Well,
you had me at Sweden.
Not just that, but I mean, as Jason had said, it throws you in. There's no tutorial.
I like that.
You're right in the game. You're like, what do I do that? And as you go along, you'll see little pop-ups of saying, okay, you just found this. You can press this button to do that, but it doesn't lock you in, meaning it doesn't force you to press the X button to bypass that message. It's one of those things where if you're paying attention, you'll see it. If you don't, you find it later.
Does it have ABBA music?
No, there's no music that I can tell except for like ambiance music to kind of show you that bring the story together, a very eerie sensation. It's very cool.
It'd be cool if I could find an ABBA record to use as a device.
I've found a couple of radios, but I haven't figured out how to turn them on yet.
See, there you go. There may be ABBA. You don't know. Or if there's an IKEA where I can go get in some meatballs, I'll be a happy camper.
Hey, do you know it's not pronounced IKEA? It's pronounced...
It's Ika?
IKEA. Something like that. It's like IKEA. Yeah. There was this list of...
Is this like the Marriott thing?
The biggest mispronounced words, and that was one of them. And I was like, "What?"
I'm looking that up.
It's IKEA in the US. It's not going to change.
I love the. That's like I love the meatballs. That's all I gotta say. They got good meatballs.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so that's awesome. So one other thing. So I got back into Hell Let Loose. Right, I'm starting to get into it, and when I figure it out, then I'll bring you guys in. But I'm not bringing you in until I feel like I can guide us because. It is. I mean, I jumped in the other day. First of all, I hate talking to people I don't know. You have to because it is a squad game. You have to talk to your squad, and I just kept getting plunked from somewhere, right? And you just got to learn how to, once you learn how to do squads and create spawn points and all that kind of stuff. I've been watching. I mean, the reality of that game. I was watching one of the historians. One of the historians I watched, World War II historian, World War II TV on YouTube. He's been reviewing it. He's like, and he lives in France. He's a Normandy. He's like, I know this spot on the beaches. I know this spot in the city. So it's pretty cool. So I'm going to get a little bit more into it. I want to try to skip back, but we all got to be in the right mood.
Yeah.
Because if we're not, it's not going to work.
Yeah. I think I want to give that one a whirl because I mean, the World War II things. Love that genre.
It's amazing. It's amazing. There was another one too. There's a couple others we should look at, but let's go. Anything else anybody wants to bring from the game?
I played Telling Lies.
Ooh,
do we want to talk about that or table it? Because it's a polarizing
like a Mean Girls thing, or is it
me.
like a?
No, I want to hear your 2 cents.
I don't know what this game is, so explain.
Telling Lies is. It reminds me a lot of like the 90s games where there was like the motion, the video capture like in the game. So the premise is this woman has a thumb drive. And she plugs it into her computer, and what you're seeing is you're seeing her screen as she would be seeing it. So you literally see her reflection in the screen, and you have to go through this thumb drive and pick up and piece together what's happening. Great premise, and it started off great, but it's like it just completely petered out for us. I played it with my son, and we were having a really cool time, and it just kind of like all of a sudden you had this option to end it by like erasing the drive or something like that, and it like that was it. What are you motioning to me?
He's waving at me because I was going to rip the sticker.
No. I was
he was
like
spoiler.
it was going down a path of spoiler, sort of. Like
Yes.
if you're not very
spoiler
far,
alert.
pretend he didn't say that.
That's
Let's not spoil it,
so
'cause I
you're
haven't
saying the
played
ending
it.
was it was anticlimactic, is what you're
I
telling
don't
me.
even know what the ending was. Like, I'm not even, like, honestly, I'm not. And my son said the same thing. We're like, what just happened? Is there another one? Is there another one? And
It's
then,
like one of those movies. It's like one of those movies where it ends and you're like,
yeah, that's what I felt. Like, I think the premise is great, but I don't know if we didn't get far enough in the videos. Like, I kind of got what the story was. I won't say it because it sounds like I already spoiled the whole thing anyway. But I won't say, like, I kind of know what was going on, but then it just kind of ended, and we were like, wait a minute, is there more to this?
So is it like whether or not Tony Soprano got shot at the end type ending, or is it worse than that? Lost.
You know what happened, but it was just like I think you got it right, Ken. It's anticlimactic because we know what happened, but the game didn't do a good job of like tying up the details.
Yeah,
or at least anyway.
I'll start playing it some more, but I'd be really interested for you to go research on the internet to see if that was what it was supposed to be, what you saw.
Yeah.
Because I wonder if based on how the game is played and all the different avenues that you can go, whether or not that you had seen an ending that was maybe either not intentional or was one of many.
I feel like it's still linear. You have to find the right keywords in the videos. What was cool, the experience of it was cool because like all of a sudden like you'd see in the reflection like her like boyfriend or something, and she like immediately like closes the window, or you see like all of a sudden the cat jumps on the keyboard and like steps on the keys and like actually types
the cat
stuff.
Scare. Nice.
Yeah,
the
and we're
scare.
like, whoa, what just happened? Like it's a really cool like thing to sit around and play with your kids, I think, like if they're old enough, because there is a little bit of mature content in there, I will say.
Yeah.
Even for my 15 soon to be 16-year-old, I was like, ooh. But
that's a stark contrast from what we normally play, isn't it?
Yeah, completely different, but it was fun. Like, I don't know if I'd sit there myself and do it, but like in a group it's fun because you're like, oh wait, look that up.
That's cool.
Anyway,
that's cool. I look forward to doing it with my wife.
You know what? By the way, one thing I want to play, and I don't know if it's on the Xbox, but I saw some of the people that I've been watching online play games, is Uno.
Oh, Uno's fun. Uno's a lot of fun.
That?
Wait, like
yes,
card game? I don't know.
Yeah, yes,
but like card Uno.
I'm in.
Yes.
Like, I'm totally in.
So
it does all the
fun
fun for you, Josh. So
like on our phones or on our
no,
phones
no,
on
on the Xbox.
On Xbox.
Oh, okay.
I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's fun.
Let's do it.
No, it's not ridiculous. It sounds awesome. And I want to do that one where the little animals make food in the kitchen. I got to figure out what that one's called. Because I want to hear us yelling at each. Because imagine there are these little animals and the food's coming in. We all got to chop it up and you got to serve it. I can imagine all of us just screaming at each other the entire time. So I'm going to find that one. But anyway, any other new games, Jason? Anything else out there that you've played besides Gen Z?
No, there is a topic we have lower down the list that is related to
Leroy
telling
Jenkins?
lies.
Oh, sorry. No, not Leroy.
Yes. Okay. Well, why don't we go to that? Because
Let's take a break.
Are you talking about Netflix gaming, Jason?
Yeah, maybe after the break.
Or are you talking about Leroy whatever Jenkins?
Netflix interactive shows and movies is just like what in many ways where we were just
that's like Dragon Quest. What's the
Dragon's Lair?
The game Dragon's Lair. It's not Dragon's Lair.
No, there's other ones. Let's do it after the break.
No, but like the game, like the video game.
Yeah.
Dragon's Lair was one of those things where you made. Is it the same thing? You just sort of decide the ending.
Yeah, and there's way more than anyone knows is on Netflix. Like I thought there were two. And what you'll realize, there's a ton of these things. So let's talk about it.
Really? Okay, let's talk about it. Who knows about it?
Oh, I said after the break.
All right, so after the break, we're going to talk about Netflix interactive gaming and that there's more choices than we thought. We'll be right back. All right, we're back, and we're here to hear about Netflix interactive gaming, which I personally did not know existed. And Jason, apparently, who knows every nook and cranny of Netflix, found it. So, Jason, you want to tell us about Netflix interactive gaming?
I honestly thought there was one of these. And the one that everyone
No,
knows.
no, but you also knew about the interactive game before we did. So
Well, I
what
mean,
is it? Is it interactive shows?
Yeah. So the one that everyone probably knows about because it was their first big one is Black Mirror Bandersnatch. That was the one that they made a ton of news about. And if you haven't gone and done that,
I
super
did play
cool.
that. I forgot about that.
So it's like a Which Way book. I mean, that's what when I was growing up
Choose
as
your
a
own
kid,
adventure.
there were these books that choose your own adventure or Which Way books, where at the end of the page you had to decide what the character would do, and then it would tell you if you do this, go to this page. If you want to do this, go to this page. So you could read the book several times to get different endings, which was kind of cool. So they've done that with a show. You're telling me?
Oh, they've done
Bandersnatch?
that. So Bandersnatch is there's a recently published list that I'm going to actually work through the same way that I know Ken is going to work through this list. It says Netflix's interactive specials ranked by how much your choices matter, which is cool, right? Because it gets down into like some of the ones your choices really don't affect the outcome, and there are others that are highly. And Bandersnatch was actually way down. It was like number 2 on the list. The reason this is now published is because they just pushed a new special, Cat Burglar. You may have seen it on your suggested. So Cat Burglar came out, and it now has gotten everyone talking about, oh, they should do more of these. And Netflix, absolutely, they've said in recent announcements they're going to do a lot more of this interactive content. And we've talked about before, there are going to be a lot of really high production Hollywood movies that are completely interactive like this. Like Dragon Slayer, as your example, the game that we all used to play. But anyway, on this list, and I don't know if any of you other than Ken have tried one of these things, but it's actually really cool. There's a few how do you say that guy's name? Bear Grylls. Bear
You
Grylls.
versus Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
my family. We watched that, and that was fun. You decide what he does, whether he eats the rotted flesh or if he moves on and finds something else. Yes, it's interesting that they did that, but it reminds me of the whole. I don't know if you guys have ever played CD-ROM games that were not necessarily PC based. Or DVD games where you put the game in and play like Clue or something like that, where you press play or you choose a menu item, and then it would tell that part of the story. And that was what You versus Wild was in my head.
This is what Telling Lies is, though. It's just not that. Yeah, it's very similar,
right?
That's what it sounds like. Yeah.
The reason Telling Lies is even to the next level is because you had a lot, almost infinite, not really infinite, but you had a lot more things that you could move around and felt like you were in more control. Whereas these things are typically like a scene happens and then they'll give you 2 choices. Do they do this or do they do that? And Telling Lies, I think, had more dimension to it.
It's way more.
There's
open.
a Stretch Armstrong cartoon. Did you guys know?
Yeah,
and Stretch looks like he looks like he weighs 8 pounds.
Yeah, Stretch Armstrong.
I don't understand how that works.
Yeah.
And why did they make Johnny Test? Can we bring Johnny Quest back, please?
I love Johnny Quest.
Besides the understanding that we're not going to talk about the Haji thing, but that was a great cartoon.
It was great.
Agreed. So, Jason, you think that this is the future of entertainment?
I think the concept of content production studios, whether they're movie or game, are going to create, or whatever sort of form of media, are going to create this endless array of potential options that are in this like tree, and then leave it up to the viewers to actually do it. And what I think it's really cool is if it's not static. In other words, if these things were done with like 50 different possibilities and they publish it and they're like, there it is, when it's done, it's done. What's I think amazing is if they keep adding options, right? And people, based on where, the pathways that the majority of folks are going, that they embellish or they change what's happening in the possibilities. I think that's where this is all going, which is super exciting. Because then,
well, it's a great point. Because I mean, frankly, what makes more money these days, right? Video games. And to your point, Jason, what you're basically making is a visual video game.
And imagine a story. We're all into Stranger Things, and when Stranger Things is done, like when the last episode plays, we're all going to be like, oh man, Stranger Things, maybe it's someday they'll break. Or Ghostbusters, the movie series. Like imagine if that lived forever, like the stories could continue to evolve.
Yeah, well, and imagine if in the metaverse you could put yourself in the movie.
Oh,
Don't
God.
get them started. Don't.
Right? I
get
mean,
'em
that's
started.
that's gonna happen. Right? Jason,
still-
look at him. He's gone. He's off and right. I mean, the idea that you could be standing on the street looking up at the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Yeah. I mean,
What
you
did
see
you
games
do
like
You could be
Yeah.
like,
yeah.
I am the Keymaster.
I mean, if you see movies like Free Guy, you know that
Yeah.
I see that happening, but in a more story driven avenue, and I really like that idea. I do. That's not where I thought this conversation was going, because Netflix actually has released mobile games.
Right.
I don't know if you've seen that, but there's a few of them out there.
You can see them on the mobile app. They're
I mean,
they show up.
Netflix seems to be throwing everything against the wall, see if it sticks at this point.
They have
Well, they're not the only one.
Escape the Undertaker. So WWE.
I saw that. That looks
That's right. There you go. Your wrestling fix right there.
Yeah, that's my daughter's favorite trio. It looks like is in that the New Day.
I think I might have to watch some Johnny Quest this weekend. I just gotta say. Sorry. All right. So I know we're getting close to the end here. Do we have other topics that we want to bring up that is
Next time I want the Leroy
other
Jenkins.
games?
I want the Leroy Jenkins conversation.
Oh well, let's talk about. I don't know what
we
Leroy
don't have
Jenkins is.
enough
You
time.
want to?
I want.
Okay.
It's
All right.
because we got a minute left or so.
All right. So, anything else from anybody?
No.
I
This
think
has been we started off heavy, but I think we had some fun.
but I think it's important. Like we all talked about it as we were playing games. Like we can't not address this topic. So I appreciate you guys all jumping in on that and sharing your thoughts. Like I said, I don't think this discussion is over, unfortunately.
No, to your point, thank God we live in a world where our kids haven't had to deal with this. I can't imagine, again, like I said, being the father or the mother having to send my kids off like people in Britain had to do. I mean, study history, because this is not new. It's been going on forever, and we just hope to God things get resolved soon. And the world is coming together, which frankly, the more we come together and we don't try to divide ourselves, the better we'll be as a society, and we'll get to play games more, which will be awesome.
Like Uno.
So at that, I like Uno, which I love the fact that I don't have to count the cards, but then I can smack somebody down for not saying Uno. So with that, this is another episode of Old Guys Playing Games and Getting Done. I'm Stuart.
I'm Jason.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Ken.
Almost.
And we're out of here. Thank you.
Later.
Bye.